The story begins with a guy named Kataki Yumeji, who is trying to cope with a certain issue. He was seated in his classroom, writing in his book. He made a mistake while writing in his book and suddenly remembered that he had forgotten his eraser. A very gigantic girl offered him an eraser. She also called him Yumi-chan. She told him that she would borrow him and then thank her later with 30 pieces of school lunch bread. Yumi-chan said that $30 is a bit high for a rental fee. She told him that it wouldn't even cover it. Yumi then laughs and tells her that it is no wonder she is so big and huge. She shouted at him and said that was not nice and that he was trying to call her a fat girl. Yumi noticed that she was very angry. He then apologized and said he didn't mean it that way. She told Yumi that he lacked some real tact when talking about a girl's body like that. The teacher in the classroom said it's good that both of them are getting along, but they should save the squabbles for after the class. The girl's name is Umain Chieri. She is in her 11th grade and also Yumi's childhood friend. She is 8 meters tall and has just been transferred to the school. He further says it has been a long time since they have seen each other because she had moved from grade school then, but now she has largely changed. She wasn't this big from the start, and Yumi wondered if she just suddenly got big. The high school girl's gigantification has become a hot topic. It was covered by all sorts of media, rising to celebrity status instantly. However, this fad has since quieted down, with people no longer viewing it as unusual. She is currently living a normal school life with aid from the government, so a supporting role as Chieri's helper at school was established, and he was entrusted to it simply because they are childhood friends. In the weeks that followed, the gigantification fad had indeed quieted down, but Chieri's unique condition still attracted curious glances from her fellow students. Despite that, she found comfort in her friendship with Yumi, who treated her like he always had, with kindness and understanding. As the supporting role of Chieri's helper at school was established, she and Yumi often spent time together, sharing laughter and memories of their childhood. Chieri's presence in school began to bring a newfound acceptance and awareness among the students, and her positive attitude inspired others to see beyond her gigantified form. One afternoon, after the teacher concluded their lesson, Chieri headed over to Yumi's place, where they often hung out. She brought up the topic of the enormous eraser she had been using in class, which had been causing her some trouble during her note cleanup. Yumi chuckled gently, teasingly saying, "Oh, come on, Chieri. You're just being a bit clumsy with it. You'll get the hang of it with practice." As Yumi observed Chieri's frustration with the lack of cute items in her school-issued supplies, he couldn't help but chuckle at her reaction. However, his amusement turned into concern when she removed her phone case, revealing a sleek, business-like design that didn't match her personality at all. As she showed it to him, her phone slipped from her hands, falling to the floor with a loud thud. "Careful, Chieri," Yumi said, rushing to pick up her phone. "See? That's why you should be more careful with your stuff." Chieri blushed, feeling a bit embarrassed. I know. I guess I got a little carried away. It's just frustrating that none of the school-issued stuff reflects my style," she sighed. Yumi nodded, understanding her point. "Well, maybe you can add some personal touches to them to make them more you-like. Maybe decorate your phone case with stickers or something." Chieri brightened at the idea. "That's a great suggestion, Yumi. I should definitely do that. It would make everything feel more like mine." As they continued chatting, Chieri's school uniform also became a topic of discussion. She noticed that it was getting a bit loose around her chest area, and she instinctively covered it with her hands. With a laugh, she shared how she had been told that adjusting clothes during the growth period could be quite a task. Yumi grinned, teasingly saying, "Well, it seems like you're going through some growth spurts. I guess you'll have to take extra care of your uniform now." Chieri playfully swatted at Yumi again, rolling her eyes, but she appreciated his lightheartedness. "Yeah, I guess so. It's just a bit awkward sometimes, you know?" "Of course I understand," Yumi replied, trying to be empathetic. "But you're handling it all with grace, Chieri. Just keep being yourself, and everything will fall into place." She said whatever, not that seeing her would make her lose anything. Yumi told her to listen. Stuff like that is why guys are not even really trying to hide their intentions to gather up. He told her that maybe she should wear a longer skirt. She told Yumi that that would be uncute. She opened her skirts and told him that she was on spats and that there was nothing to be embarrassed about. As Yumi tried to give Chieri some advice about how her skirt length might be attracting unwanted attention, she brushed it off, saying she didn't care if guys were looking. Yumi sighed, realizing that Chieri was still underestimating the impact her appearance had on boys at the height of puberty. Chieri, it's not about you. It's just that guys your age can be a bit, well, distracted by certain things, Yumi explained carefully. Chieri frowned, not fully understanding what Yumi meant. Distracted? By what? Yumi hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to put it delicately. By, certain body parts, I guess. It's just how guys are at this age. Chieri's eyes widened, and she blushed, finally grasping what Yumi was trying to convey. Oh, I see. But I can't wear a longer skirt. It's not cute at all, she protested. Yumi chuckled, realizing that he needed to handle this situation with more sensitivity. Well, maybe there's a middle ground. You can still wear a skirt you find cute, but maybe not roll it up too much. That way, you won't attract as much attention. Chieri considered Yumi's suggestion for a moment, then finally nodded in agreement. All right, I'll try to find a balance. But you know, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I wear spandex under my skirt, so it's not like anyone can see anything inappropriate. Yumi nodded, acknowledging her point. You're right, and it's good that you're comfortable with it. But not all guys may be as respectful as you think, and it's better to avoid misunderstandings. As they continued talking, Chieri noticed that some other guys in the vicinity seemed unusually happy that she had opened her skirt to show her spats. Confused, she confronted them, asking why they were laughing. One of the boys replied with a sheepish grin, "Sorry, Chieri. It's just that we're not used to seeing girls in spats, especially government-issued ones. It's kind of novel, you know?" Chieri blushed again, feeling a bit self-conscious but trying to maintain her composure. Well, they're just spats. It's not that big of a deal, she said firmly. Yumi, observing the situation, could see that Chieri was growing increasingly uncomfortable. He stepped in, saying, "All right, guys, let's give Chieri some space. She's just showing that there's nothing to hide, but let's respect her privacy." The other boys nodded, understanding Yumi's point. Chieri appreciated Yumi's support, and together, they decided to move on from the topic. Later on, when they were alone, Chieri showed Yumi the spats she had been wearing. "Is there something off about them?" she asked, genuinely curious. Yumi hesitated for a moment, then turned back, saying, "There's no need for me to see them, Chieri. Just make sure you feel comfortable and confident in what you wear. That's what matters most." Chieri noticed that the guys were increasing in number as they gazed at her spat. She asked Yumi for help. Yumi asked why he should help. He then remembered that to Chieri, he was just a childhood friend and a helper. "Yumi, can you do something?" "They won't stop staring at me," Chieri pleaded, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Chieri's cheeks flushed even deeper as she pleaded with Yumi, her childhood friend, to do something about the increasing number of guys gazing at her spat. Yumi, feeling a mix of jealousy and concern, finally agreed to help her out. He couldn't bear seeing her distressed. Determined to find a solution, Yumi thought of a plan. He suggested that they both go somewhere private to talk about it in detail. Once they found a secluded spot, Chieri poured her heart out about how overwhelmed and uncomfortable she felt with all the attention she was getting. Yumi listened attentively, realizing that this was more than just a simple request for help. He saw the vulnerability in her eyes and understood that her feelings were genuine. He decided to be there for her, not just as a helper but as someone who truly cared. Yumi hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to react. He knew he should help Chieri, but he also couldn't ignore the conflicting emotions inside him. He was just her childhood friend and helper in her eyes, but his heart seemed to be telling a different story. Summoning his courage, Yumi decided to help her, not wanting her to feel alone in this situation. He remembered a trick he had learned a while ago, using light to create the illusion of heat. Concentrating his focus, he manipulated the light around them, making it appear as if there was an intense glare. The guys, not knowing what was happening, quickly dispersed, leaving Chieri and Yumi alone. Chieri looked at Yumi with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you, Yumi. You always come through for me. Yumi smiled, trying to downplay his actions. It's nothing, Chieri. I couldn't just stand there and do nothing when you needed help. Chieri asked him if he was sore anywhere, and he told her no. She then said that she was going to grab him now. She grabbed him with her hands, and Yumi screamed for his life. She laughed at him and thanked him again for saving her. He looked at her face and said in his mind that he gets it now, that he was caught up in the surprise too much, but it's only her body that has changed. And on the inside, she is still the same kind of slightly bratty girl he knew back then. He then said loudly that he would protect her from now on too. Chieri looked at him in a confused way. Yumi then realized that he had said that loudly. Chieri said okay, and he should promise her that he would be sure to protect her. She didn't realize it when she dropped him on the floor. Yumi screams and tells her that she's too clumsy. As Yumi lay on the floor, holding his back in mock pain, Chieri couldn't help but giggle at the situation. I'm sorry, Yumi. I didn't mean to drop you, she said, trying to hide her laughter, though her mischievous eyes betrayed her amusement. Yumi rolled his eyes playfully and said, You really are too clumsy sometimes, Chieri. But it's okay, I'll survive, he teased, getting back on his feet. On the bustling school premises, Chieri couldn't contain her excitement as she rushed to Yumi's class, searching for her childhood friend. Her loud voice echoed through the corridor, calling out his name. Yumi, who was used to Chieri's exuberant nature, looked up from his desk and smiled warmly as she approached. With a height of 8 meters, Chieri was quite an extraordinary sight. Despite her towering figure, she had always been gentle and caring, especially towards Yumi. They had been inseparable since they were little, and their bond had only grown stronger over the years. As Chieri leaned over Yumi's table, her eyes shining with enthusiasm, she proposed that they have lunch together. Yumi, though surprised by her loud entrance, couldn't help but chuckle at her eagerness. He nodded, knowing he would never refuse her contagious energy. Unknown to many, Yumi had been appointed as Chieri's supporting helper. Given her unique size, she needed some assistance with various tasks and navigating the school grounds. However, for Yumi, it was more than just a duty. It was a way to remain close to his cherished friend and be there for her whenever she needed it. Throughout the school day, Yumi and Chieri spent their time together, reminiscing about their adventures as kids, laughing at inside jokes, and making new memories. Chieri's infectious spirit brightened up every corner of the campus, and Yumi was proud to stand by her side as her supportive helper. As Chieri stood there with her head on Yumi's table, asking him to go have lunch together, he felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, he wanted to spend time with her, but on the other hand, he couldn't help but feel the weight of their unique situation. As her appointed supporting helper due to her gigantification, he sometimes struggled to balance their childhood friendship with the responsibilities assigned to him. As Chieri's vibrant blue eyes sparkled with excitement, Yumi couldn't help but smile at her infectious enthusiasm. Her proposal to have lunch together tugged at his heartstrings, reminding him of all the cherished memories they had created since childhood. Yet a part of him couldn't shake the complexities of their current situation. With a deep breath, Yumi gently placed his hand on Chieri's shoulder and said, Of course, Chieri. I'd love to have lunch with you. He tried his best to hide the conflict within, not wanting to dampen her spirits. As they made their way to the school cafeteria, Yumi's mind wandered back to the day Chieri's gigantification was discovered. The news had come as a shock to everyone, including Chieri herself. The school had taken several measures to accommodate her, and one of those measures was appointing Yumi as her supporting helper. He had willingly accepted the role, wanting to be there for his dear friend in any way he could. However, as time passed, he found himself grappling with the balance between being her friend and her helper. There were moments when he felt the weight of responsibility, fearing he might say or do the wrong thing and inadvertently hurt her feelings. Chieri, you know I'd love to go to lunch with you, but I can't really leave the classroom right now, Yumi said, trying to come up with an excuse. Chieri pouted, looking a little disappointed. Oh, come on, Yumi. Just this once, can't you make an exception? Yumi hesitated, torn between wanting to make her happy and adhering to the rules. I'm sorry, Chieri, but it's not just about me. We both have to follow the school guidelines. Just then, the teacher walked in, noticing the commotion. Is everything okay here, Chieri and Yumi? The teacher asked. Chieri quickly straightened up, giving a smile. Yes, everything is fine, sensei. I was just asking Yumi if we could have lunch together, but I understand if it's not possible. The teacher nodded, appreciating Chieri's understanding. I'm glad you're being considerate, Chieri. And Yumi, as her supporting helper, your role is essential. It's crucial that you both follow the school's guidelines for everyone's safety. Yumi nodded, feeling relieved that the teacher intervened and supported his decision. Yes, sensei, I understand. As the class continued, Yumi couldn't help but feel guilty for disappointing Chieri. He knew she valued their time together, and he wanted to be there for her as much as possible. But his responsibilities as her helper couldn't be overlooked. During lunchtime, as Yumi walked through the school grounds, he kept thinking about Chieri. He felt torn between his role as her supporting helper and his feelings as her childhood friend. He wanted to find a way to strike a balance and make both aspects of their relationship work harmoniously. Later that day, after school, Yumi found Chieri waiting for him at their usual spot. She had a bright smile on her face, but he could sense a hint of sadness in her eyes. Hey, Yumi! Chieri greeted him. I know you have your duties, and I don't want to make things difficult for you. Yumi sighed, feeling guilty once again. Chieri, it's not about making things difficult. I want to be there for you, but I also have my responsibilities as your supporting helper. It's just that sometimes it's hard to balance everything. Chieri nodded, understanding his point. I get it, Yumi. It's just that I miss spending time with you like we used to when we were kids. Immediately after Chieri said that, Yumi ran away. Yumi's heart was pounding as he caught his breath, feeling torn between his desire to be helpful and the need for a moment of solitude. Chieri's anger lingered in the air, but deep down, Yumi knew that running away wasn't a solution either. He wanted to mend their friendship and resolve the tension that had grown between them. Taking a deep breath, Yumi turned to face Chieri, determined to find a way to make things right. Chieri, he began softly, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought that maybe we could both use some time alone to clear our heads. But I don't want to lose our friendship over this. Chieri hesitated for a moment, her anger subsiding slightly as she saw the sincerity in Yumi's eyes. I don't want to lose our friendship either, she admitted, her voice softer now. But it hurts when you make decisions without considering my feelings. I'm really sorry, Yumi said, feeling remorseful. I should have talked to you about it first. Chieri nodded, her anger giving way to a glimmer of understanding. Okay, but what about lunch? She asked, still feeling hesitant about the idea of eating together with everyone watching. Yumi smiled, an idea forming in his mind. How about we find a quiet spot away from the others? That way, we can have lunch together without drawing too much attention. What do you say? Chieri considered his suggestion for a moment, then nodded. All right, let's give it a try, she said, willing to take a step towards reconciliation. As they walked together to find a secluded spot, Yumi and Chieri talked openly about their feelings, fears, and hopes for their friendship. They realized that miscommunication and assumptions had led to this situation, and they both vowed to be more considerate of each other's emotions in the future. As they sat down for lunch away from the prying eyes of their peers, a sense of relief washed over them. They laughed and reminisced about the fun times they had shared, gradually rebuilding the bond that had been strained. Immediately, Chieri showed up in front of him, and he wondered how Chieri found him so quickly. He ran to the male restroom to hide, but Chieri also followed him to the male restroom. Yumi told her that she didn't have any shame for coming to find him in the male restroom. Yumi's heart raced as he tried to catch his breath, realizing that Chieri had followed him to the male restroom. He felt a mix of embarrassment and frustration, wondering how she could be so relentless in seeking him out. Chieri, you can't just follow me into the male restroom, Yumi said, trying to reason with her. Chieri crossed her arms, looking unapologetic. Well, if you insist on running away, then I'll follow you wherever you go. You can't avoid me that easily. Yumi sighed, feeling exasperated. Chieri, it's not about avoiding you. It's just that if we have lunch together, people might tease us. You know how they can be sometimes. Chieri looked at him with determination in her eyes. I don't care what others think. I want to spend time with you, and I won't let anyone stop me, not even you. Yumi couldn't help but admire Chieri's persistence, even if it put him in a difficult spot. He knew she was stubborn, and once she set her mind on something, there was no changing it. "Alright, fine," Yumi relented. "But let's at least find a quieter spot where we won't draw too much attention." Chieri smiled triumphantly, happy that Yumi had finally given in. Together, they left the male restroom and found a secluded corner in the school garden where they could sit and eat without being disturbed. Once Yumi heard that Chieri couldn't hold chopsticks because of her large hands, he chuckled and agreed to feed her. With a warm smile, he gently picked up a piece of food and brought it to her lips. As she savored the delicious flavors, Yumi couldn't help but notice how her eyes sparkled with delight. As they continued to enjoy the bento together, Yumi asked Chieri about herself. She shared that she had always been self-conscious about her oversized hands, feeling they made her stand out in a way that made her uncomfortable. But Yumi reassured her that her uniqueness was what made her special, and he genuinely admired her cooking skills and kind gesture of making the bento for him. The conversation flowed easily between them as they exchanged stories and discovered shared interests. Yumi found himself drawn to Chieri's compassionate nature and the way she cared for others. Yumi looked at her in disbelief. Chieri asked her if he was feeling embarrassed to feed her. Yumi shouted at her that she should shut up and have it her way. He fed her, and he asked her how the food she made tasted. She told him that she couldn't taste anything because the food was too small.